Hello, I'm Kelsey Austin, and my presentation is on budgeting and managing fiscal resources. So there have been many structural changes to the way hospitals run their business. Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement policies are changing. There's increased concerns about costs of healthcare, changes in technology, and generalized growth of the healthcare system. And all of this has led to a massive financial and budgetary changes in healthcare. It's leading to increased financial sophistication, and healthcare is being asked to do more with less and increase revenue while cutting costs. And it is important as a leader to understand your role in creating, managing, and adhering to a budget. So what is a budget? We have a few definitions here. Budgeting is a structured plan for managing income and expenses, and is a standard with which to measure the actual achievement of people. It is a process that compares actual results with planned expectations, and it is a statement of those expectations set over a period of time, managing resources such as people, money, and time. And all of this is done to help set goals and objectives and organize priorities and direct efforts in an organization. So you need to know a few things before you can create a budget. You need to know demographics, and this is talking about the population that you serve, different community influences, and you need to know who your competitors are within the community. Revenue sources. Where are you getting your reimbursements from? Is it Medicare, Medicaid, insurances? Statistical data. How many admissions do you have? What's your daily census? What is your average length of stay for different units? What is your projected occupancy or volume? And these will kind of help you get a better idea of what you're working with. You need to know what your expected wage increases are for your staff. Cost increases for supplies or equipment. Are you upgrading? Are you changing different companies who supply different things? You need to know what kind of staff mix you have. How many RNs do you have? How many LPNs do you have? How many aides? You need to create a budget that's going to comply with different regulations. Do you have a mandated nurse to patient ratio? How are you going to pay for all those nurses? And different changes in the organization. Are they merging units? Are they just doing different things that are going to cost money? So some approaches to budgeting. And they kind of break it down per area. What is your unit considered? It could be considered a cost center, and this is the smallest area of activity, staff and supplies, etc. Nursing units are usually considered a cost center, but they can also be revenue, profit, or investment centers. Revenue centers, they do just that. They generate revenue. Their goal is to increase patient volume, decrease turnover time, make money. Profit centers generate revenue that is higher than costs, but with the way healthcare reform is, this may become obsolete. And then there are investment centers. They manage costs, they have capital equipment assets, and they also generate revenue. And your organization can choose various or a combination approach to budgeting as far as what they consider your unit to be. Types of budgets. So there's the incremental budget, which is the line-by-line budget. Each item is on a separate line. Salary and non-salary items are separated. The advantage to this is that it's simple, but it doesn't promote cost efficiency. Then there's the zero-based budget. It just assumes that you start at zero. That's your budget. Every single activity, every single program, every single educational opportunity must be justified through management. So the advantage is that everything is justified, but the disadvantage is very time consuming. Then there's a fixed budget, and that's just that. It's set, can't change it, you just have to work with it throughout the year. Variable budget, changes can be made during the year based on variables. The operational budget is the overall annual budget. It coincides with the fiscal year. The fiscal year can be with the calendar year, January through December, or it can be within any of the months. It's just a 12-year cycle. And this is a statement of expected expenses and revenue for the coming year. The revenue budget is just that. It is a budget that is of expectations of income generated by patient care, reimbursement from insurance, Medicare, etc. It also includes any negotiated discounts and capitation. And capitation is one rate per member per month, regardless of the services that are provided. And the expense budget. How much are you spending on salaries? How much are you spending on non-salary items such as supplies and equipment? And some of these costs are also broken down. There's fixed costs, just things that don't change. Variable costs, it could be priced differently this month and that next month, then depending on how much you need. Direct expenses are usually considered salary for employees who do direct patient care, nurses, LPNs, etc. Indirect expense is salary for people like maintenance, security, anybody who is helping the organization run but not giving direct patient care. So salary budgeting, or the personnel budget. So this is the salary cost per cost center in a budget period. And this is actually a direct reflection of leadership ability to direct and lead staff. If your unit has a lot of costs related to staff turnover or absenteeism or use of supplemental staff, it doesn't really look very good. So what you need to include in your salary budgeting are benefits, vacation, holidays, and personal days. And when your staff is out on vacation or holidays or whatever, do you need to bring in per diem people? Do you have to pay them as well? Are you paying them shift differentials? Or are you having people work overtime to cover those shifts where people are on vacation? Do you have on-call expenses, which is just an amount of money you get per hour to keep your phone on you to get called back in? Then there are bonuses and premiums. Premiums are pay increases for certifications or clinical laddering or anything else of that nature that you could think of. So some additional considerations are you may have to pay for additional labor expenses related to learning, training, increasing skills, procedures, and operating new technology. The budgeting timetable. The budget usually takes about 3 to 6 months to be put together and approved. So it starts with the first level manager, and hopefully you have input from the staff at that level about just different budgeting issues. Then it works its way upwards through the managerial hierarchy, and it gets approved on its way up, but there may or may not be adjustments made throughout the process. The final step is approval from the governing board. Usually approved, the budget is usually approved several months before the beginning of a new fiscal year. So there can be a bunch of problems affecting your budgetary performance. So you can have reimbursement problems. Insurance or Medicare or Medicaid don't agree with some of the charges or the way you handled a patient's stay. They might think that you could have discharged a patient a couple days earlier, and they're not willing to pay for those extra days of care. Patient disputes. Patients just disapprove of the way you're charging them for supplies, or they think that you handle things differently than what they thought it would go, so they're not going to pay what you want. Or you have a patient who is unable to pay. They're uninsured, or they just don't have the money. Whether or not they're impoverished or not, they just might not be able to pay. And that's just revenue that's not going to come in. And then you could have negative staff impact. And this is stuff that we talked about a little bit earlier, just misuse of time off, absenteeism, large amounts of overtime, which is the opposite of that, just lots going on and people have to work a lot of overtime and you have to pay them. Turnover, anytime someone leaves and you have to hire someone new, that's just a lot of time and money spent on someone who's not independent. So it's gonna cut into your budget. And then there's just wasteful use of resources and supplies. So your role as the nurse manager is to have basic knowledge of the budgeting process. You need to pursue the goal of the unit or the budget. You need to target cuts that progress meeting the goals of the organization. But I think I would also like to stress that you want to meet the goals of the organization, but you don't want it to be at the expense of your unit or your staff. So you need to allocate appropriate resources and you need to be flexible. You need to be involved. You need to foster teamwork because an engaged staff is going to be more likely to help you with your goal in cutting costs. If they're part of the discussion, if they're in the know about the budget and the goals, then they're going to help you with that goal. So get the employees interested in cutting costs. And spend time on the budget process. Don't just throw it together haphazardly. Your steps need to be retraceable. So when you're handing in the budget, you can be able to show them how you got to that result. Try and make it as simple as possible. And I threw in a little cartoon here because budgeting and fiscal resources can be a little bit dry. Here's a video about healthcare budget cuts within Pennsylvania. It's more of managing money on a larger scale than just your organization. And you can feel free to view that on your own time. It's only about 5 minutes. And it's just talking about the effects of the Pennsylvania government's budget on healthcare costs and how that can greatly affect your hospital or organization. So here's a little bit extra information for you. So growing organizations are trying to drive down costs in anticipation of the shift from volume-based payment to performance and quality-based reimbursement. Many organizations are asking everyone to do more for less. They're trying to increase their purchasing power and they're trying to negotiate to get lower price per unit. And a lot of places are also moving away from once-a-year budget process to a more flexible approach, really looking at it maybe quarterly. Some places I read were even doing it monthly, just going in and kind of looking at it every month, seeing what they can adjust to try and reach the goal for the next month. And healthcare is kind of modeling after other capital-intensive industries such as airlines and manufacturing. And a lot of their goals are to minimize risk, not only with investments, but just minimize risk for their employees. Hurt employees cost money. Unhappy employees cost money. And they're also trying to bring in new technology and procedures to healthcare faster. And this is all based on the models of, like I said, airlines and manufacturing and such. Here are my references. And that is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.